investigation into the disappearance of Gabby Petito is intensifying. Today, an autopsy has officially been scheduled for the body believed to be Gabby's. And now police are searching the Carlton Reserve in Sarasota County, Florida, for her fiance, Brian Laundrie, who has been missing for almost a week. Meantime, we're learning more details about Gabby and Brian's relationship. Right before Gabby went missing, a witness told a 911 dispatcher over the phone that they saw Brian slapping Gabby in Utah. Now, we have that newly released audio of the 911 call, and we're going to play it for you, so listen carefully.
County Sheriff's Office.
Were you able to get a description of the intoxication?
Hi, can you hear me, sir? Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, I'm calling. I'm right on the corner of Main Street by Moonflower, and we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute. Florida with a white van, Florida license plate, white land, gentleman,
Where's it at?
5'6" beard. They just drove off. They're going down Main Street. They made a right onto Main Street from Moonflower.
Or what were they doing?
Cooperative, but what do you say?
What were they doing?
We drove by, and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
Okay, you said it's a white van?
White van. I can give you the license plate if you give me 1 sec. I took a picture of it.
What kind of white van? Like a big one?
It was a smaller van with the license plate of, it was white, Florida license plate. It was, the make was a Ford, model was Transit, black ladder on the passenger side.
Black ladder, passenger side.
The audio is so chilling. And so you have to ask, what happens now? Join me now to weigh in, former police officer, founder of TatumReport.com, and author of Beaten Black and Blue, Being a Cop in America Under Siege, Brandon Tatum. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. So Brandon, I'm sure you've been watching this case closely, and it's just so devastating and so gut-wrenching to think what this family's going through, what Gabby potentially went through, and this idea that her fiance and somebody that supposedly loved her disappears, doesn't talk to police. It's just so disturbing and so mysterious.
Yeah, I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, one of the things that we have to do, and me being a former police officer, understand investigations, is that, you know, we don't know what happened. You know, when you saw the police body cam footage, she was actually going to get arrested for domestic violence assault against her boyfriend or fiance. And so we don't know who was, you know, the more aggressive person in this. The boyfriend or the fiance definitely seems to be, you know, if you have the guess, he seems to be a little more suspicious, given the fact that he not want to cooperate with police, and also now he's missing. You know, if I had to make a wild guess, I'd say he probably went off somewhere and he's probably no longer living as well. But it's very suspicious when you see someone not cooperating. If it was an accident or maybe something happened and a misfortune between the two of them, maybe she did something to herself in spite of him, you would think that the boyfriend would do all that he can to get to the bottom of this investigation and cooperate with police. But the fact that they lawyered up, the fact that the parents apparently was hiding him and did not notify the police when he had went missing. So it's a very, very, you know, crazy situation. And unfortunately in this country, this happens all too often with domestic violence.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Like, again, we just have no clue what happened. And there's a million things that could have happened. And as for why somebody doesn't speak when they come home without their fiance, you never know how people react to things. So could it have been a suicide? We'll find out from the autopsy. But until then, we don't know. But what do you make of how police have handled this case? A lot of people are being very critical. They're saying that they should have done more when they had been called for that domestic dispute. They're also saying that Brian should have been a person of interest sooner on in this investigation so that he didn't have time to get away from officers.
Yeah. So the first point is that, and this is me Monday morning quarterbacking, but I feel like that the officer should have arrested her that day, and she should have went and gotten booked into jail. And I believe that would have given them enough time to be separated indefinitely, and possibly never talk to each other, or not talk to each other for a long period of time. If she would have went to jail because they had probable cause to arrest her, she admitted to assaulting him. He had signs of injury. His story and her story corroborated. The police officer initially was going to arrest her, but then he decided to let her go and let them go in separate ways. I think she could have possibly been alive. Now, I don't know that to be true, but it seems like that could have been the situation. Now, as far as the boyfriend being a person of interest, me, like I said, being a former police officer, he has always been a person of interest. Now, whether they broadcast that live or not is based on the investigation and a tactic that police officers use so they don't tip the person off. If you come out publicly and say the boyfriend or fiance is a person of interest, he's definitely going to go running and hide. If you try to play it and act like he's not a person of interest, and no, we're looking at other possibilities. This could be connected to another situation, and maybe that'll give police officers time to zero in on him so he don't think that he's a part of the investigation. However, his behavior has, caused enough suspicion to believe that he was definitely a part of this situation in a negative way.
What do you think about how the parents of Brian Laundrie, how they have reacted to all of this, and how they haven't really, it seems like, been cooperating with police as much as maybe they should have? Again, we're not there, so we don't know exactly what's been said, but some people were really confused by the fact that there was a Mustang that Brian Laundrie drove to that park not too far from the house, and then the parents went a couple days later, brought the car back without Brian. A little bit weird.
It's very suspicious what the parents were doing. I understand that it's your son, even if he was guilty. Some people are going to stand by their children. They don't want to see their son spend the rest of his life in prison, or, I don't know, possibly get the death penalty. They don't want to see that happen. So they will protect their child. But unfortunately, this is not the way. I mean, I would say they shouldn't do this. I wouldn't say unfortunately, but they should cooperate with police. It appears that they were complicit, which could get them in trouble as well if they knew or had reason to know that he had something to do with her death, and they assisted him in going to a field or a park area where he can then make an escape, them not notify police, leaving police to believe he was still at the house, and then helping him by removing his vehicle from the area in which he had driven to escape or to do whatever he's doing at this point. So they could be considered to be complicit in this, and they can be charged as well if they're interfering in an investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, they need to say everything that they know, and they need to help police find Brian. People in this country are so outraged, rightfully so. It's so devastating to think that this happened to a young woman. Again, we don't know if that body is hers, but they're suggesting that it very might well be. Really quickly, over at MSNBC, Joy Reid had a pretty hot take on this investigation. We'll react after. Roll tape.
Watching the news for the past few days, or on Twitter or TikTok, you're probably familiar with the name Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old aspiring social media influencer who was reported missing after her fiancé returned from their van life excursion without her. On Sunday, human remains believed to be Petito's were found in a national park in Wyoming. An autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow to confirm the identity. Now, it goes without saying that no family should ever have to endure that kind of pain, and the Petito family certainly deserves answers and justice. But the way this story has captivated the nation has many wondering, why not the same media attention when people of color go missing? Well, the answer actually has a name: missing white woman syndrome, the term coined by the late and great Gwen Ifill to describe the media and public fascination with missing white women like Laci Peterson or Natalie Holloway, while ignoring cases involving missing people of color.
So missing a white woman syndrome, never heard that one before, but that's pretty grotesque. It's pretty sickening that she would say this while there's a family in mourning. And again, while there's just so much outrage in this country over the missing young woman. I mean, they were looking for her and they want to find her and or they want to know what happened.
This really enrages me because they cannot save an opportunity or they cannot spare an opportunity to push racism in this country. I mean, nobody cares about the color of this young lady. All people care about is the fact that she went missing. Her boyfriend is not, or fiance is not cooperating with police. We see that they had a domestic violence dispute where it became physical. This is something that strikes the heart of anybody, especially if you're a parent. And nobody cares about the color of somebody's skin. But let me tell you something that is very interesting, because I guarantee you that not one time on her show do she put any of these black kids that have been murdered in Chicago, shot in the head over the weekend. She don't talk about them on her show. So how about you make an inference or make a reference to the fact that y'all don't care about black people that get killed, let alone black people that go missing. It's not about black or white, man. This is a situation where it has garnished a lot of attention because it's highly suspicious. And they have video evidence of the young lady and her fiance getting into a domestic dispute. I would love to see her give me an example of a young black woman going missing in the same circumstance, and you tell me that the nation wouldn't be concerned. And I would, tell her that she's a lie if she would try to produce something like that. But it is sickening to me that they try to push racial agendas and then they overlook the racial bias that they show by not ever giving young black people in the inner city a voice, a T-shirt, a GoFundMe, or anything that get killed unjustifiably.
Yeah. Also, Joy Reid has a show, and she's right. I mean, there are a lot of people of color in the inner cities who do go missing. You can go check the police feeds. They're constantly looking for people and young women and teenagers, and it's devastating. She has a platform. She pick a case and talk about it. So instead of dismissing this case altogether because she wants to somehow instill racism into all of this, why doesn't she do something about it, right?
Right. It's always the other people. It's always the white man needs to do something about it. You have your own show. I don't remember her talking about any missing black people. And let's bring this in full circle. When a person goes missing, it's not very suspicious. People go missing, quote unquote, all the time because parents haven't talked to somebody, or they've been gone, or they decide to, as an adult, they decide they don't want to be involved with other people. They want to go off the grid. That's not illegal. There's nothing weird about that. We used to get those calls all the time. It's very rare that a person goes missing and then they end up dead. So when you see a situation like with this young lady and her fiance, this was a very suspicious circumstance where they go across country, they get into a domestic violence situation. The kid is off the grid for over 8 or 9 days. I mean, and then the boyfriend shows up without her. That's the reason why this got a lot of traction on the media, not because of anybody's race, it's because of how suspicious this was and the likelihood that there was going to be a dead person on the other side of this. I really wish people would just get rid of this racial stuff. I mean, you and I are not worried about it, but these people on mainstream media, they live and die by pushing racism in the most inconvenient times, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, and also too, just the whole story around this, that these were, YouTubers, and they were documenting the whole trip along the way. And also there was a time element here because they were searching for her. And if you're stranded out in the middle of a national park where there's hundreds of thousands of acres, you might need help. You need water, you need food, you might need medical care. So it's just so ridiculous that she turned this into a race thing, but that's what Joy Reid does. Well, Brandon, thank you for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it.